with the upcoming release of Duelist Advance, we're getting a lot of new interesting cards, including new cards for Yuma, new cards for Vanquish Soul, new cards for a lot of interesting decks, and we're even getting a new Flame Swordsman card. Now, this is the Dark Flare Swordsman, probably a reference to Dark Flare Knight, the fusion between Dark Magician and Flame Swordsman. Unfortunately, this version of Dark Flare does not really care about Dark Magician at all, but it's a really great starter for the Flame Swordsman archetype. It allows you to send a Flame Swordsman or a monster that mentions it from extra deck to graveyard, meaning it can set you up that second fusion monster, that fighting flame dragon that you may not have been able to mill normally. In a normal combo line, Flame Swordsman goes from fighting Flame Swordsman into Swords Realm to slap the OG Flame Swordsman on field, and then you mill the level 2 monster from deck to Salamandra to be able to search either one of the fusion spell or the fusion trap card. And then on like a follow-up turn, you can then find another way to send Fighting Flame Swordsman to graveyard. That'll allow you to send the Fighting Flame Dragon, allowing you the chance to fusion summon using the trap card, assuming you didn't use the spell card. Now, Dark Flare Swordsman puts that extra body into the graveyard already, so that if you want to fuse with the trap card, it's accessible as soon as your opponent turn starts, assuming you're playing Pure Flame Swordsman. But I figured Pure Flame Swordsman wasn't really going to be my vibe. What I really wanted to explore, because Pure Flame Swordsman, it seems to be something a little more control oriented, and I don't mind the deck playing that way, but that's not the way I would like to play the deck. The way I would like to play the deck is utilizing the Infernoble support and using that to its fullest extent to get the most amount of extension off of our Flame Swordsman engine. So Flame Swordsman is very self-contained and can get us to the ultimate Flame Swordsman, while the Infernoble has all the extenders and the combo pieces that we need to get us multiple interruptions on board and to give us a lot of gas into a lot of different hand traps and scenarios. The two cores kind of work together because all Infernoble kind of needed was just more ways into a level 4 warrior. And you may be asking yourself, like, it's only one new card, it's just 3 more ways into Flame Swordsman, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that it doesn't use your normal summon. It tributes itself as a quick effect, mind you, and it tributes for cost, meaning it's kind of like a Requiem to be able to special summon Fighting Flame Swordsman from your deck, or a monster that mentions it, except level 6 monsters. So, which is funny for 2 reasons, because that means it can't summon Metal Flame Swordsman even if it wanted to, and 2, you can summon the level 2 if you wanted to off of this guy, but why would he do that? I can't fathom why you would summon anything except Fighting Flame Swordsman off of this, but I digress, right? It doesn't use your normal summon. And so this one card turns Fighting Flame Swordsman into a rank 4 engine, makes the Infernoble stuff a little more formidable because you get to start building boards and start putting pieces on field without using your normal summon and without fully committing to either engine using these cards. We're going to go over what I feel benefits of utilizing Dark Flare Swordsman in an Infernoble deck. So as you can see, we're starting here with a Dark Flare Swordsman. Unfortunately, no combo lines for this are going to be only 1-card combo. I don't think 1-card combos exist in Infernoble in a world without Isolde. You could argue Uppercutter is a 1-card combo, but it's not a good one because you would need to waste the equip spell that you searched with Museum, and you would also need to preemptively lock yourself into Warrior to be able to make Emperor Charles if you just went to, just Uppercutter by itself. But when you mix the Flare Swordsman with Oliver, that's where you get the full potential of both engines. So we're going to start with Dark Flare, milling Fighting Flame Sword, summoning itself out, tributing for cost, bring out Fighting Flame Swordsman. Fighting Flame Swordsman is going to search just another copy of Fighting Flame Sword, and this is really cool because this means Fighting Flame Sword is now, if we didn't have to discard this could just be a funny little interruption for battle. So it can actually pop a card when an attack is declared involving a fire monster, or fire warrior monster, excuse me. So we're going to use this to be able to search another copy of Fighting Flame Swordsman because we want to be able to discard it for Oliver. Now you could also draw Renaud here, and drawing Renaud here is pretty good as well because it basically allows you to keep your Fighting Flame Sword, but I figured I might as well show the line with Oliver because I do like the equipping part of Oliver. I think that's what makes him very interesting. So now Oliver gets to summon itself, and we get to go for Angelica. And what you'll notice that I did here is I discarded Fighting Flame Swordsman for Oliver, but I did not trigger the Fighting Flame Swordsman that I discarded. Instead, I waited until I went Angelica to resolve Fighting Flame Swordsman, so that way Angelica could be chain blocked, so it can't be ashed. And for the second part is it can't be impermed either, right? So for them to imperm or Veiler this, they would need multiple copies of imperm or Veiler, because this card could chain to an imperm or a Veiler to banish itself to mill and then get us exactly what we want. Targeting this with imperm or Veiler or a hand trap like that would not be a good idea. So because Fighting Flame Swordsman was chaining 2, it's going to mill Salamandra, and then chaining 1, Angelica is going to add our Noble Arms Museum. Salamandra, we're on res, it's going to be able to search us the Salamandra with Chain, which is the fusion trap card for the ultimate Flame Swordsman. So now we get to go Museum, pay 12, add Durendal here. Now this is actually really good because we haven't used our normal summon, so Durendal can search us any Fire Warrior level 5 or lower in the game, basically any monster in the Infernoble engine as a whole, and make the maximum amount of use with it because you still have your normal summon. So now Salamandra is going to attempt to equip to Angelica, right? And because she was targeted, she's going to run away. Banish, summon out Captain Roland, and now the equip card to Angelica fizzles, but she did her part, right? So she slapped Ogier in the graveyard and then slapped Roland on field. So now we're going to do Durendal. Durendal's going to grab a Renaud. Renaud's going to grab back Ogier. Ogier is going to be able to mill Turpin. And so this is essentially everything that you need to be able to make Infernoble combo. So we're going to synchro into second Captain Roland, and this is because if you have a particular equip spell that you want to attach to Charles, this is how you do it. You just mill any equip spell during end phase, and then you sequence it so this is going first, and then Charles goes after. So next we're going to start equipping with our Infernoble pieces in graveyard. So Ogier is going to equip to the recently summoned Captain Roland, and because they have a equip card, Turpin can summon itself out from the graveyard, meaning that we get to make an Emperor Charles. Now we're going to use Roland to equip to the Emperor Charles, and that allows us immediately to make our Link 1, which is Emperor Charles the Great. Using both Charles and the monster it was equipped with, we can make a powered up version of our level 9 synchro that is a Link 1 and has one of the most interesting boss designs I think I've ever seen. So it has the ability to re-equip Emperor Charles from the graveyard, and it takes Emperor Charles's effects, which is pretty cool, which the only part of it that's relevant towards the opponent is that if a card is equipped to a monster on the field, you get to pop any card on field, which is very cool. Mix that with the Captain Roland and you have like a soft interruption once per turn. And then it can send any equipped spell from hand or face of field to the graveyard to negate a spell or trap activation and destroy it. Now here's the cool thing about Emperor Charles in the spell and trap zone is it's not going to stay there long because of Museum's second effect. You can just summon any monster from your spell and trap zone into the main monster zone, but if you do not control Emperor Charles, you're locked into warriors. Now we control 2 Emperor Charles, so we're actually not locked into warriors off of Museum, and we got both effects off. If we had a second Museum in hand, we could have very easily activated it, like right here, but it's alright. So now we're going to start using some of our equipped pieces from the graveyard, so like Oliver equipped to the Charles so that we can use the Charles to make the second Emperor Charles the Great. So it's going to reattach the Emperor Charles again, and then We're going to set the Salamandra with Chain, and we're going to mill the Angelica's Angelic Ring. And the reason why this is so significant is because this negates on resolution, the same way that Raizo Cross does. So if you negate a spell or trap activation using your Emperor Charles, and then you can save, because it's negated at activation, Angel Ring will not automatically apply because it has to negate the effect of the first spell your opponent controls each turn. It kind of gives you all the power in determining what spell cards you want to resolve and which ones you don't. Just be really wary that they might be able to bait you, because Angelic Ring is mandatory for its spell negation. They might be able to bait it out if you're not paying too close attention. So I would say just keep an eye on that. So now moving on to the opponent's turn. Excuse me. Before we move on to the opponent's turn, we're going to be equipping Angelic Ring, and as you can see, we're also going to be equipping the Regenesis Warrior here. Now, Regenesis Warrior is interesting in this archetype because it is a fire warrior with a quick effect to interrupt the opponent. So it's actually a kind of good card if you can get it on field. And the other thing is that if it's sent to the graveyard, or if it's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn during the opponent's end phase, it can add itself back to hand, meaning you could send it off for Emperor Charles's effect, and then during your opponent's end phase add it back to hand, and then, you know, possibly be able to special summon it during your next turn. Although being able to get this card out on the field, we're going to talk about in the next replay, because it's not that simple, but it is also kind of easy if you're able to get the full line out. So this isn't a card that you have to play 3 of. You don't have to play the entire Regenesis engine, but just this one card can actually go pretty far in the deck. Angelica comes back. Now moving on to the opponent's turn, right? We're looking at 2 spell or trap negates, 1 spell negate, 1 pop with Charles, 1 Book of Moon with Salamandra with Chain. And so, right, so they're going to start playing their turn. We don't have any monster interruptions, at least not at the moment, because all our zones, spell and trap zones, are taken, so we can't use Captain Roland here yet. So if you don't want to equip this second warrior monster to your Emperor Charles, you don't have to, but there is ways to clear up your zones so that you don't have to give up your, like, grind game. Alright, so let's say they activate Fighting Flame Sword, right? We're going to do our Emperor Charles. We're going to send the Regenesis Warrior because it's the best target to send. Negate that. Let's say they do another spell card, right? That's when Angelica gets to come in. And because he was able to activate 2 of them because Charles's effect negates activation and Angelic negates on resolution. So because we negated the activation of the first one, the second one was still able to be activated legally. So Angelic Ring got rid of the second one, or we could have used Charles, but there was no need for that. I guess you can hold Angelic Ring for something like Dark Ruler or Droplet if you feel like that card's coming, but they would have resolved that Dark Ruler or Droplet first, chaining to the first one, so you would have been alright either way. Now we can use Captain Roland after we use Charles's once. Now Charles the Great can now pop a card on field. And then, as I mentioned before, during end phase, because there's a sense of graveyard, Regenesis Warrior gets to come back to hand, and now you have, like, amazing follow-up with Gearfried plus Regenesis Warrior. Right, and, you know, writing's on the wall. Like, you've pretty much got it from here. There isn't really much else that the opponent can do, so. The one thing to be careful about with Salamandra with Chain is that, yes, it's a good Book of Moon, but it cannot be sent to the graveyard using Emperor Charles's effect because it's not an equipped spell card, it's an equipped trap card. You would not be able to send Salamandra with Chain, so it would be very difficult to remove this from the field if you were to equip it to Emperor Charles. With Salamandra with Chain, you may have to choose between the Book of Moon or the fusion effect for that turn, so that's something you should be wary of. Now, Gearfried can send Salamandra with Chain, but you won't always have Gearfried turn 1, so just be wary of that and just try to keep that in mind as you go through some of the combo lines. You can easily just equip Salamandra Chain to Angelica just so you can send it to graveyard. So now we're going to look at what if you draw something like Durendal instead of opening one of your Ogier or your Renaud. So it's like Ogier, Renaud, Museum, or Durendal. All of these work. Even Almace technically works here too. As long as you're opening Dark Flare. So you go Durendal. Durendal can then search Oliver. You could also search Renaud. I'll show you why you can search Renaud. Because although you don't want to recycle your Durendal because it's not going to do anything with Renaud, if you have Renaud here, you can save the second effect for another point in the turn. Because we're going to go into Promethean Princess in this line. So as you can see, again, we're chain blocking our Angelica, getting our double search, getting our free trigger of Angelica's effect with Salamandra, going for Museum. This time we're going to go for the Joyeuse, right? Because we've already used Durendal, we can play Joyeuse here, and Joyeuse can add us the Fire Warrior that we milled off of Angelica's effect, which in this case is going to be Ogier, and we still haven't used our normal summon. If you wanted to use All Mace here, you also could. You could use All Mace, and then you could have like Turpin in graveyard, and then just special summon out Turpin, and then Synchro with the Roland and the Turpin, and then All Mace will trigger when it's sent to graveyard to add the Turpin back to hand if you wanted to, or you can add like one of your other engine pieces back to hand. Yeah, you could play All Mace here, but Joyeuse is just slightly better. All Mace is a better card, but Joyeuse is slightly better in this line because it lets you go for Ogier, and that gives you an extra equipment. So now you go Roland equip, make your first Emperor Charles. Emperor Charles attached OG Charles. Now you can use Museum to special summon. Equip Turpin. Go for another Emperor Charles. Now you can equip Ogier. And so this is something really good that you should know. I had Emperor Charles in the Spawn Trap Zone. I had Ogier in the Spawn Trap Zone. Snake Eyes Doom Dragon is now an engine piece that we can use by sending our equip monsters to the graveyard to summon itself from the extra deck. It sends any two face-up monster cards from your Spawn Trap Zone into the graveyard. So even though they are still monster cards because they're still monsters, they're also still spell and trap cards. So they're still equip spells, but they're also monster cards. Or I guess equip cards, you could say. You really don't have to use this for its effect. It's just the body itself is going to be really relevant for like the Regenesis stuff, right? So Regenesis, you need to have a monster with 2500 original attack or defense. Lo and behold, there is not a lot of monsters in the engine that have 2500 attack or defense in Infernoble. A lot of them get boosted up to 25 because of stuff like Museum or because of equip card effects, but none of them have it naturally except Snake Eyes Doom Dragon. And another reason why this is so good is because we're about to use Oliver to equip, right? So now that we have a monster that's equipped, we can bring back Turpin. And look at what we're about to do here, right? Promethean Princess. As I was mentioning earlier, if you wanted to hold off on that Renaud effect to add a Fire Warrior back to hand, this would be the perfect time to do it, right? Because you Promethean Princess summon out Renaud, and then you can use Renaud's effect now rather than later to be able to add back one of your equip spells or Fire Warrior monsters from banished or from graveyard. Like you could add back Turpin, you can do a lot of stuff here. So Promethean Princess is going to bring back literally whoever, assuming you didn't start with Renaud, it could bring back whoever, even Emperor Charles, and then you can link off into Amblo Whale. Now the reason why this is twice as good in this line is because normally when you Promethean Princess pop Amblo Whale to stop your opponent from summoning a certain monster, Amblo Whale doesn't bring back a link monster usually, because when it's destroyed it can target a link reel or in either graveyard and special summon it. Normally you don't get that effect because that effect is mitigated by Promethean Princess locking you into fire monsters only. But because you have this Emperor Charles in your graveyard, you now have the ability to pop with Promethean Princess, pop this, pop a monster your opponent controls, summon out, and then on res, Amblo Whale will trigger to bring back your Emperor Charles. So you still get the Emperor Charles second spell or trap negate, but this time it's more layered, and you still have something like Captain Roland in your graveyard to be able to equip to the Emperor Charles the Great, so that even if this Charles gets cleared, like the one on field, you still have a second one sitting in reserve just in case your board gets dealt with or broken in some kind of way. You still have that spell or trap negate. And then This makes it even better because with the Salamandra with Chain in this line, it can be equipped to the Ambler Whale. You can guarantee the Book of Moon, and because you know you're popping Ambler Whale with Promethean Princess, you can also guarantee that Salamandra with Chain is going to be sent to the graveyard. So to make Promethean Princess before in this line, you would have needed to use both Emperor Charles's, but thanks to the existence of Snake Eyes Doom Dragon being able to create a body from 2 monsters in your spell and trap zone, you no longer needed to potentially sacrifice one of your best pieces or to draw more extenders just to be able to make Promethean Princess safely in this line. And because we're not locked into Warriors off the Museum, we weren't forced to make this early or anything. We made it when it was the most relevant point that we can make it. So again, end phase, Emperor Charles equips any equip spell from deck. So we didn't make that second roll in this turn, or this game, so we didn't have the Angelic Ring in graveyard, but that's fine, right? So it's 1 less spell negation, but we have more layered interruption overall. And we still have Fighting Flame Swordsman here. So Dark Flare, right? Let's say we go Promethean Princess, which isn't really smart on Dark Flare, but the opponent's turn isn't important. But what's important is that we're popping. We're going Ambler Whale to summon out our Charles. And now we have 2 Speller Trap negations. So we can use Charles, again, send Fighting Flame Swordsman, send OG Flame Swordsman. Now we can go Salamandra with Chain. Now at this point, again, I was supposed to do this on Ambler Whale so that we could send this to graveyard. So just little sequencing misplay right here, but it is what it is. Book of Moon. And yeah, you do still have the effect to pop. Now, because the one that you summon back from graveyard is no longer treated as Emperor Charles, or it's no longer treated as Emperor Charles the Great, excuse me, it doesn't get the effect to pop when it's equipped with an equip card. But that's a hard once per turn effect anyway. So as long as the one that stayed on field still has that effect, you can still get that pop when you equip an equip card to any of your monsters. So, assuming we went through that line properly, right? That's Ambler Whale, and so Princess, that's 1, Salamandra is 2, each Charles brings it up to 4, plus the pop that brings up to 5. And then Ambler Whale in graveyard can also, if your link monsters get destroyed by battle or by card effect, it can also pop a card on field by banishing itself. Both effects can be used in the same turn. So that's 6 interruptions potentially for the opponent. So if they try to get rid of these preemptively, there's also ways you can deal or mitigate with that. Oliver, when he's in the equip spell, he stops the monster from being targeted, which is good because that would stop a card like Gordian Slicer, which can't be negated. And there's really no way to play around it other than just to have something that can't be targeted. And they would just be forced to target the card that can't be targeted. So they'd be forced to target the Oliver and your other potential cards on field, but not your Emperor Charles. So Oliver is the best one to leave as an equip, I believe. And this is a sample list: 3 Dark Flare, 3 Fighting Flame, 3 Sword, 3 Fighting Flame Swordsman, Rhoda, Oliver, Renaud. You can play these at 3 ofs now that they're better supplements to the engine. Triple Museum, it's broken if you draw more than 1. Durendal, Almace, and then you're kind of like one of bricks. Soft bricks, like it's okay to draw like Ogier, and it's definitely okay to draw Gearfried. The rest of these you kind of don't want to open, like Joyous, Turpin, Salamandra, and Salamandra with Chain. You kind of don't want to open these, but like Gearfried and Ogier are fine to open as long as you're also opening like the other parts of the engine. Cross out Talents, Tactics, called by Imperm, Impulse. Everything in this engine is fire or dark, right? Like SP or Anima. But everything in the engine is fire. Everything that you're going to be using is fire, so Impulse works to a T in the deck. I can't recommend Songs of the Dominators because we do use graveyard effects a lot, so I can't recommend that one. But if you want to throw in more targets for crossout, you can cut these down, I guess, or you can cut down, like, you know, Droll to put in like Nib, Veiler, whatever else you think is relevant. Perulia. Well, Perulia doesn't hurt us as much because we're summoning mostly from Graveyard and from Spawn Trap Zone. We really only summon like 2 monsters from hand during our turn. So Perulia is only going to be like a +1 for them, where it's like Meows. Actually, no, Meows wouldn't even be that crazy because we summon mostly from Spawn Trap Zone. I think it would just be Flulos that we're scared of, so that's why we can play it at 3 here. You've pretty much seen the entire extra deck. Ultimate Flame Swordsman still here. Doom Dragon, pretty good piece. Very helpful for the Regenesis. Typhon and Anima, since, you know, in case we have level 1s and we need to break a board, and we just have like extra Renaud or we have extra Oliver, we can use those to make Anima and then use those to make SP so that we have better push. Thrust, Perulia, Nib, Regenesis. Heritage of the Chalice is still an option you can play if you want more consistency. I don't think you need it in this list, but it is an option. And then also Angelic Ring for going first and Snatch Steal for going second. So these are just 2 equip cards that you can like just put in the deck just because they can be recycled and they can be really strong pieces, or at least in Snatch Steal's case it could be a really strong piece, and it can be recycled off of Renaud. It's just without Isolde existing in the deck, it's hard to like get access to this initially, but once you do have access to it, it's pretty easy to like loop it around. Dempsey is a possibility, right? As I mentioned in the first replay, Flame Swordsman is now a rank 4 engine because you're essentially just special summoning 1, searching Fighting Flame Sword, searching another level 4, and then you can just normal summon the second level 4. But if you're normal summoning the second level 4, then this is going to have a very limited use as to what it could do for you, because we're not getting a second normal summon, so it's not like we're going to be using that like crazy, but it is still just good to have around. It's good to know that we can use it. Ricky Ardetto, it sucks that this card cannot summon itself. I feel like that would make this a better card for the engine, but is what it is. So yeah, this has been Flame Swordsman Infernoble post Duelist Advance. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This has been your boy Nistro here, signing out.